Good morning and welcome to the Joint Board of Review meeting between the City of Akron and Akron Public Schools on July 18th, 2025 at 11:01. We'll start with the Akron School Board roll call, please. Dr. Thompson.
Dr. Jackson.
Present.
Dr. Molinar.
Here.
Ms. Autry.
Present.
And Pastor Harrison.
Present.
I believe I've hit all of us.
Yes. Thank you. Next, we will have the city roll call. President Somerville.
Do we have someone who can handle that for us?
I can certainly
Thank
do it
you.
since I stole the list. Okay. Mayor Malik.
Present.
Mr. Lombardo.
Present.
Ms. Somerville.
Present.
I missed it. Oh, Mr. Fricker.
Present.
And so we have 1, 2, 3, 8. One more. Wardell. It's Wardell. And Miss Wardell.
Present.
Okay. So we have 1, 2, 3, 9 present, and we have 1 absent.
Did we do, just for a point of clarification, did we recognize also superintendent was present?
Yes.
Okay, I
Yes.
didn't know.
No, I did not call her name because
Just for the record.
Superintendent Outley, are you present?
Yes, present.
I just want to note for the record that Rochelle Wardell is filling in for Euphrates Lash, who's out today.
All right. Thank you. Next, we'll have the approval of the previous meeting minutes. Is there a motion to approve the previous meeting minutes?
So moved.
It's been moved by Ms. Somerville. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been seconded by Mayor Malik. Any discussion? Seeing and hearing none, roll call, please.
Dr. Jackson?
Yes.
Dr. Molinar?
Yes.
Ms. Autry?
Yes.
Superintendent Outley?
Yes.
Ms. Somerville?
Yes.
Mr. Lombardo?
Yes.
Mayor Malik?
Yes.
Mr. Fricker?
Yes.
Pastor Harrison?
Yes.
Ms. Wardell?
Abstain.
9 yeses and 1 abstention.
Thank you. Next, we'll stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Member Molnar, could you please lead us?
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Member Molnar. Currently, I have not been presented with any requests to address the board. Now, we will begin with our agenda for the new businesses update on the LFI funds and timeline. I believe Director Fricker.
Yes, so I do have an update on the arbitrage calculations. So we did get the report of the calculations that were done through the 2020. The report was dated through December 7th of 21. So that's the first portion of the calculations, and that does not, there is no rebate due on the funds up through that time period. Then we needed additional financial information, which we did receive from the schools, from Valerie Mills, that we forwarded to the person doing the arbitrage rebate calculations. They looked at that and determined that it is going to take a little bit more time to work through that. So they are giving us a time frame of late August in terms of completing that final, the calculations from 2021 through present day, basically. So we should have the calculations sometime late August or early September.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Fricker. Are there any questions on that? All right, thank you. Next, we'll have our update on the Pfeiffer and Miller South project. Thank you, Ms. Falk.
Good morning, President Jackson, President of Somerville, Mayor Malik, members of the city, and APS Council. At this time, I'd like to give you an update on the Miller South project, that with Miller South and Pfeiffer being at the Kenmore location. I wanted to remind you that the board approved this particular project in July 10th of 2025, and the entire budget for the entire project was $63 million. Of that, $2 million is set aside for the demolition of Pfeiffer and Miller South once the students would move into the new building. At the time this was originally started, the estimate of building construction was done in 2023. Once you paid for the abatement, demolition, and design services, the budget for the building itself was $54 million, and it was raised to estimated at 56,000 square feet, which at a cost at that time was $346 per square foot. We then proceeded through this particular process. We were able to obtain a design firm, and I have Mr. Mitchell here from Prime AE, who is our president of Prime AE. They are our design record staff. We started to plan the buildings as to the educational process, including what we needed for Pfeiffer and Miller South. By the time the designs were completed, we increased the square footage to a total of 169,764 square feet, with a new cost listed that we obtained through our also contracted vendor, our construction manager at risk, who is CT Taylor, and it came in at $67 million. So that's where you get the $13 million that you have heard about in additional cost. And the new square footage per cost per square foot to open planned at this time with August of 2028 is increased by $400. That's where the $13 million comes from. So we then went ahead, and Superintendent Otley and myself, along with members from Prime AE, went to and met with the staff members on the Miller South and Pfeiffer buildings on June 6th to explain to them that we were seeing an increase in cost of the building, and with the original plans that were discussed, and we wondered if what adjustments could be made, and that is called value engineering. This normally does happen through a construction process to reduce the size to their review to see if we could also save cost. Whoops, wrong way, I'm sorry. So what I can do, if you will look in your packets, Scott, I may need your help here. I wanted to bring up the plans. And I don't know that this will do it. Please look at your plans. There are floor plans on our website. If you would look at your packets, the link I have put there.
Of it on here,
Oh,
of both types.
okay. Right, okay, hang on a minute. That's the exterior, there it is, hang on a minute. There we go. coming. Really? There it goes. Okay, so these are the floor plans that came out of that review with the staff members. Some of the suggestions were, so let's start at the beginning. Originally, when this was started in 2023, this included a 500-seat auditorium. It included one entrance. It included some other amenities that were eventually planned in. Excuse me for a minute. Okay. So therefore, that's where you got your additional square footage. So what came out of this was we went from the initial planning to an actual first plan, an increase through the request of several staff members and our previous superintendent to increase, as an example, the seating from 500 to 1,000 for the auditorium. What we did determine through this talking with the plan example staff out there, we could take out of what was called the mezzanine, which was the 250 seats, and make it equal to our current high school auditoriums, which seat 750. And then it also didn't need a catwalk because you needed that for the mezzanine. So there were some other value engineering. So these are the plans you currently see available. One other thing that also was done with these plans is we actually truly took out the black box because it was not necessary. And I'd like to remind members of both of the joint board that middle school CLCs do not have auditoriums. This is something we planned for the programming of Miller South because it is a performing arts school. So we were enhancing the original footprint in order to do that. So we also we're thinking of other consolidations that we could do. We didn't need 2 clinics. We didn't need, maybe not 2 entrances, things like that, as we would go ahead and allow this. One other thing that is in the background, and we've had some questions, so I'd like to share this with the board. As you know, the footprint for the Kenmore location had the original school, if I'm facing north, on the west side of the property. This would be located, or on the east side of the property. This is now located on the west side of the property. And that is because under the original Kenmore building is a very large sewer line that is literally under the building. And to make an adjustment or remove that and remove all the building footers were not something that were felt to be adequately addressed in the construction. You would end up with overruns and cost. And if you had any questions, that's why I asked Mr. Mitchell to be here. So therefore, this is Plan 2. These are currently on our website. And I also wanted to show you, and if I could get to the other one, you also have in your packet the original renderings for the outside. I'm sorry, they're in black and white, but that was what we also wanted everybody to see. Thank you, Heidi. So those are the renderings that are currently available sitting on the west side of the property. If you had any questions about that, Mr. Mitchell certainly could come up and answer those as well. Next, I also wanted to go back to the slides, if you give me a minute. Okay. Nope, that's the minutes. Yep, got it. Thank you. There we go. So from there, we want to now go ahead and give you one last piece of information. So APS was working with our vendors and our construction owner representative and C.T. Taylor. And so now we're at a point we are talking about, hopefully today, how to cover the difference in the funding. Original funding for this, as I said, was $54 million. $40 million of it is certificates of participation. Dr. Thompson worked with his staff and the bond agency. These were sold in December of 2023. There is $15 million from APS that is included in that. That is, we title it ESSER. It's not technically ESSER. It is general fund. It was just ESSER previously. So we were now up to $55 million. If we need $61 to $63 million, that was the discussion with the city of Akron. Could the resulting LFI funds left from the previous project also be dedicated to make up the balance? Because we've had an increase in square footage to meet the needs of the program, would it be possible to change the agreement that allows us to, depending on what Mr. Fricker and Dr. Thompson told us would be available, would there be a change in the agreement to allow all the funds that would result to be put towards this project in order to cover the cost of building the building, and in case there could be any kind of change orders or overruns that you get that sometimes appear that you cannot plan for. So that is the information I have for you today. And if you had any questions, Mr. Mitchell and myself are available to help handle those. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Falk. Mayor Malik.
Thank you, Madam President, and thank you so much, Ms. Falk. I really appreciate all the information. This is very helpful. Two questions. So you mentioned in terms of the revenue side, $40 million from COPS, $15 million from ESSER General Fund, that's $55 million. Is the total project cost with the Piper and Miller South demolition, is that $67 million?
It would be $67 million
Okay.
if you build it the way it was without the value engineering. That is correct. And that would include the $2 million set aside to take down the buildings that would be left, Piper and Miller South.
Okay. How much is it? What's the total project cost with the value engineering?
We have not completed that yet, but as an example, as we downsized the auditorium, we came to close to $800,000 to reduce that by taking the mezzanine out. There are some other things we're still looking at, but taking out the mezzanine still met the seating capacity equal to our other high schools and allowed us to have a very nice auditorium for the performing arts. One of the things that did come up as an example in talking to the staff about the auditorium was how you would schedule that and how number of performances we could certainly offer, because we would have this increased seating at a middle school location, because many of our performances for large ones are currently at our high schools.
So the total cost with the value engineering would likely be less than $67 million?
It could be if we can continue down that process.
Okay.
We are not completed with the process yet.
For sure. So I guess in my mind, then we're talking about, $12 million, $12 million possibly less, understanding that, there can be cost overruns, there can be change orders and things like that.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. So that seems like a gap that could be covered by the LFI funds, again, depending on any penalty.
Yes, that would be, especially if we move forward in a very timely manner. I understand there's some legal agreements that have to be done, but we do not want to hold this project much longer, because that $400 per square foot next year could be $425 per square foot. So we need to have this done in a timely manner.
Absolutely. And then last question, I'd really appreciate you going into the details on the auditorium. Councilwoman Boyes, who couldn't be here today, obviously has been involved in this and talking with members of the community about this. And the auditorium, are any of our high schools bigger than 750 seats? As I was thinking about Firestone.
Firestone is 742.
Okay.
Garfield is 747.
Okay.
I do not want to put North in there. That is not a new build.
Sure.
And North is very unique
Sure.
when it was built because it actually had a small theater and a large auditorium.
Yeah.
So each location is, but Booktel, most of our brand new builds are around 750 seating.
Okay, no, that's helpful. Okay, well, I guess the last point that I would just make is that it sounds like we're in a ballpark where there would be the gap is something that could potentially be covered by the LFI funds, either in whole or in part, and that sounds like a direction we all want to move forward in.
Thank you very much.
Yes, please.
Just out of curiosity, Miller South Old School, what's the seating capacity there?
Because it was originally a high school at that time, it's 940. But it was also built in the 1930s.
Right. Any of their events have seating capacity problems?
You mean Miller South? They have usually very well-attended events, but they also schedule them understanding which kind of play or event they're doing. One of their major issues is not the seating, it is the actual parking, because as you are aware, the parking is extremely limited over at that location, and we are building the parking here at the property that would allow us to park. With the understanding, we've asked Dana and his staff to reach out to the city, knowing that we would be putting an auditorium in this area and what other areas would be available in the area for parking. So that has also been a discussion at the city level as we go through this project.
Okay, thank you.
Member Harrison, excuse me.
Thank you, Madam Chair. One of the questions, and I think we're kind of going there, Councilwoman Boyes was really looking at the auditorium as far as if the mezzanine was taken out, could it accommodate a 1,000-seat stadium auditorium, 1,000-seat auditorium with a different design at not the cost of a mezzanine, but simply the seating was important.
We did look at that, and I can advise you if we put 1,000 seats on the floor, it would add $1.2 million to the project.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that was on the record because that was a question for her. And if we have the LFI money to cover costs without significantly coming close to a cost overrun. I think I would like to see the comparables to that with those additional seats. I heard we took out the black box theater, and I know everything is give and take, but to build, I would just like to see that if we're doing numbers, some of the important things, what it costs with those things that were deemed important, and then what we can afford, if that makes sense. And Madam Chair, I have one follow-up. It would be helpful if we get a sheet of the cost, because my original understanding was the bill was at $63 million. We had budgeted $63 million, and then it came in at $76 million. And then I know we're going back with the value engineering, but when we're here, it would be helpful for me if we had a sheet that would explain, one sheet that would explain where we are and the cost differential. One follow-up. How did we get from the original 156 square feet to 764 square feet?
The original design was based on the OFCC standards which is the basic school construction plan, similar to what we had done through the CLCs across the board. And I'll give you an example. It was just the original box. And then you sit and you plan with the staff as to what is needed for the programming. And that's when sometimes you get something added. So maybe as an example, maybe somebody wanted, and I remember as we looked at the board, one of the additional was another family resource center in the area. There were 2 clinics, things like that. So as you did it, but it was really one of the bigger ads was to take the auditorium from 500 seating up to 1,000, and then they had to adjust it to fit the property. So as the planning comes in from the educational side of the house is where sometimes you realize what you need to do. The OFCC plan is very prescriptive per student, and I will advise the board that when you build an OFCC planned school, there are things that they will not co-fund, and auditoriums are one of them. And they do not always co-fund the size of special ed classes in the way that we as a district are mandated to do those. So those are why you had what I would call local funds initiative, because this is what we as a community planned. This is what our dollars came in through the agreement with the passage of the tax incentive, and we were allowed to dedicate some of those fully to those funds as you went through this process, and know that you would not get co-funding from the state. So, but those, and auditoriums have never been covered by those at all. Those are always local funds initiative. That's why when you walk into your elementaries and your middle schools, they have cafetoriums, which the stage is located between the gym area and the cafeteria seating, and it can be opened up in either direction. That was their resolve, to allow entertainment at that level as opposed to a full staged auditorium that you built when all of us went to school, and many of those were at the high school level.
Thank you, Ms. Falk. Also, just for a point of information and clarity, is that it's important that the community knows and everyone is clear that in the previous CLCs, the state money was allocated, and we're going to get to that later in the agenda about the amendment to this cooperative agreement, which will remove the clause stating funds from the state, because with these bills, including with the North bill, there will be no state
That is
add, as you mentioned, for anything, not just with the auditorium. So I think that's important to know, too, when we're thinking about what would happen then with the build and how we're moving forward now. Thank you. Ms. Falk, is there any additional questions for Ms. Falk or our architect? I see that. Sir, I'm sorry, I don't recall your name. Could you come to the podium? Because it seems as though you wanted to add something financially.
Good morning, thank you. Dana Mitchell with Prime AE, Senior Vice President. One of the questions you were asking about the difference between seating, the plan of a floor plan on the ground level is $750. The least expensive way to add seats is to add them in a mezzanine. If you take the mezzanine out and put those seats on the floor, the box gets bigger on the floor. So the first approach was to elevate those seats, and that's about a three-quarter of a million. But if you take those 250 seats and put it on the floor, you're adding 1.2 million or so. So it's cheaper to raise them than elevate them. Does that answer your question?
Thank you. Then, Member Harrison. Yeah.
One question on the parking. Did we lose any parking moving it from east to west, the actual build?
No, we actually were going to gain parking by putting it on the west side of the building. We're going to use part of the parking on the upper side, on the east side of the property, and then in between the new building and the upper level and the lower level, there'll be parking in between, right against the building.
So how many parking spaces will we have?
Good question. I used to know that off the top of my head, but you remember, Deb, how many? We did talk to the city and looked at how many parking would be needed for daily use for teachers. We were able to accommodate that, and I think it was in the 80 range. And then I think there's another 100 at the upper level. and then the surrounding areas, both streets and as you get closer to Kenmore and by the library, there's parking down there as well. So there's, we talked to the city, and they were totally on board with, during events, using on-street and off-street parking to resolve those similar issues that we're having at Miller South now.
Yes, please.
Thank you, Madam President. Ms. Falk, you said that the value engineering process is not yet complete. Do you have a goal date for when you will have that done?
I think we are now meeting with their staff meets weekly. They now meet with us as a core meeting every other week, so we will have more of that as we go forward. But we also wanted our staffs to be here, and our principals start coming in next week, and our other staff will start coming on board as we get into August, because you want to have everybody's input. And there will be another community meeting as well. There was supposed to be one in April. It did not occur, and we are discussing having that reestablished sometime after the school year in probably September. So we will be ongoing, but we'd like to finish it as soon as possible so that we can tell our construction manager at risk to really go out, and get the appropriate budget in place, so that we also have another thing that we are required to do as we have the final budget. We have to go out on the market and seek the cost of the construction manager at risk insurance, and our insurance agent here at the district is waiting for those final numbers and information from the CMR. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wardell. Thank you, Ms. Falk. No other questions? All right. Thank you. Next, we will have a discussion concerning the cooperative agreement and the amendment process. Law Department. Yes, please, Mayor Mallett.
So I know that, we're kind of getting some status updates today. I think our hope is that, we continue working towards getting this calculation and then also finalizing an amendment with our legal teams. And so, my hope would be that following this meeting, we work on finalizing that amendment, getting the final number in place, continuing on, the conversations around the value engineering, and then having a third meeting to basically approve that through this. I think upon which time it would go to our respective legislative bodies. So just wanted to ask our law director, Deb Matz, if she wanted to add anything to that process. I believe that both legislative bodies have to approve an agreement within 90 days of each other. So we would just want to coordinate that. But that's kind of the thoughts that we had. Do you want to add anything? So I think we would anticipate potentially doing that sometime in September, since it looks like we'll need through the end of August to get that calculation.
All right. Okay, thank you. I do have a question, I guess, for the law director, because as I'm understanding, as I read through the agreement and the updates that's going to be made to the agreement, thank you for coming to the microphone. The updates being made to the agreement is simply dealing, and I may need clarification on this, as I understand it, is simply dealing with the language concerning the state contribution parts to the project, since the state is not contributing. That was the amendment, as I'm understanding, that's being done. Is there something else that's being amended in agreement other than that portion, as far as the contribution from the state, since there will be no contribution from the states in these upcoming projects?
It's on. Okay. As far as I know, that's the primary purpose for the amendment. I don't know if there's going to be any other language that either the board or the city would like to see made to any of the other provisions. Perhaps the Joint Review Committee, not this body, but the body that reviews the processes for using the CLCs.
Or the Citizens Committee.
Yeah, Citizens Committee, thank you. And so that's kind of the place where we're at, looking through those all of the parts of the agreement that are sort of executory still.
Okay, and that's why I wanted to make sure that I was clear on that, because I guess my next point of clarification that you make can help. Understanding this as one collective body made up of two organizations, as I was reading through the agreement, my understanding was it's in this body that we decide and vote on the decisions.
This body makes recommendations.
And
then the recommendations go to both the city and to the Board of Education. Those bodies vote to approve them. Assuming those bodies do that, then that's the amendment that becomes effective.
Okay, so it doesn't come, okay, thank you for that point of clarification. And then just also for clarity, this is just a general question. So you all are the city is meeting in September to discuss this amendment for the state funds. I'm just trying to make sure I'm tracking with what's happening, because I'm trying. Ms. Falk said about the sense of urgency with understanding the financial part with these LFI funds.
Yes.
And that's why I asked the question about the vote for the funds, because I wasn't quite understanding with the agreement that we had to ask the city, because it seems as though those funds were already designated for the use of NCLCs, that we would be able to use it. And so my question is, that discussion or that vote, now if I'm understanding, I hope I'm not belaboring this, the city will make a determination, the board will make a determination, and then when we come back together, that's the action step.
Well, no, I think the action step is once we get the financial kind of the arbitrage decision or the arbitrage information from the people producing it for us, that's when we're going to fully understand the financial ramifications of what's left of those funds, all right? I think this body needs to meet probably close thereafter, maybe early September. Our council is on break in the month of August, and so obviously we can't meet in August in order to have that approved. But this body is going to need to meet to look at that information, look at a draft amendment, which will be produced prior to that, and then ultimately make a recommendation to each of the legislative bodies on the amendment that gets proposed at this third meeting.
Okay, it's just a follow-up. My question is about that, because I'm seeing it as two separate things. The LFI funds, that's one discussion. If it's not, this is, I'm processing, so if I'm not correct, please clear me up. And then the amendment is a completely different discussion. The amendment, as it was presented, is only dealing with amending the portion where it's stating the state part is being removed because there's no state funds. The LFI monies, which I understand after the arbitrage, the penalties, whatever, we'll know what the balance is, right? Whatever that amount of money is. I guess where I'm unclear is because this LFI money is already, as I'm understanding, designated funds for CLC usage.
Madam President, if I can.
Yes. Go ahead.
So
you're ready.
my understanding of it is that the agreement lays out, in exhibits, a series of basically projects, right? Mm-hmm. And so the first phase of projects, the second phase of projects, third phase of projects, and all of those are complete. And so in addition to clarifying that there will be no state funds, we actually have to set out a new project, right? And so there needs to be a project, and in order to have the project, we need to know how much project's going to cost, how much from the LFI funds is available, because these are designated for LFI, but according to the current contract, that's done.
Understood.
And so that's
exactly.
the piece that we want to add to it.
Excellent, thank you. That's why I asked repeatedly,
Sorry about that.
because we were only shared that the amendment information was simply removing the state. Mayor Malik has set it up,
Yeah.
that's clarifying that because this is a new project, how that would go about. And so I think that answers the question that I had. It's an additional, it's a total amendment because it's amending, adding a new project because the other projects have been completed.
Yes.
Okay, and then, okay, that's something for us to discuss. Thank you so much. Because if we don't use all those funds, I do also understand, reading through the agreement as it stands, that some of those monies can be used for the maintenance of the CLC projects that already exist. And so if all that money is not used, we can discuss that later. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. And thank you, Mayor Malik, for that clarification. Member Harrison.
Thank you, Madam Chair. While we're getting clarification, I just want to make sure that we clarify, that I'm clear on the scope of what we're talking about when we talk about the Kenmore-Pfeiffer build. So when we talk about the Kenmore-Pfeiffer build, we're talking about building Kenmore-Pfeiffer. We're talking about tearing down the buildings that we're vacating, Miller South and Pfeiffer schools. So when we're talking about the project, all of this is one project, okay? So I think sometimes when I leave, and I have to watch the meetings again, but so the LFI money that we're talking about using that money to complete this project in total if needed.
Yes.
Okay, I just wanted to kind of say it out loud so we're all clear. Thank you.
All right.
Madam President, one other point
Yes.
that Member Harrison raised for me is that I think it is, I think we do need to note just for the record that I think, you know, from the city perspective, we're willing to use the LFI money for this purpose. I think we do need there to be an understanding that, so say just the perfect world, right? $18 million is currently in the account. Say there's no penalty at all, $18 million. Say the gap is $18 million, right? We can contribute that, but any additional cost overruns beyond that would have to be funded through APS general operating. So I just want to make sure for the record that we're clear on that.
Yes. Thank you. I think we are. Yes, Dr. Thompson?
And hopefully it'll go the other direction. Perhaps, just for your consideration, might be language in there in one document that says if you happen to, let's say there is a balance of 1.2 million at the end of the day, that money would automatically revert to the North project. And then that, because we know we're going to have some cost overruns there as well, but.
I think, Madam President?
Yes, please.
I think that, you know, we're addressing the Kenmore project. I think that any unexpended funds, we would have to have the same conversation about, you know, whether we go to North or whether we go to something else. But I think that the amendment, you know, the amendment should put this forward as the project. That would be my suggestion.
Thank you for that, and I think that's important. That point of clarity is very important because, as I stated, I was not aware of the amendment to include that, as the mayor had unpacked, which is great because that gives a clear of where the funds are going. So, yes, I think that's something for both bodies to discuss as far as those funds, because we do know, as has been discussed in our previous meeting, that some of these current CLCs are having issues where repairs are needed, auditorium at East and things like that. So if the money would be more beneficial use if we're amending something, right? Because if we're going to amend something, we don't want to keep having to come back and amend. So we really want to think through, as the mayor said,
what are these, if it's a 2 million left over or 1.5 million left over, will it be designated for the current CLCs for updates and repairs? And then we'll adjust or what we need to do as we move forward to the North Project. Thank you. Mayor Malik, yes. Yes.
Point. I think one thing that, as we know, there are, these projects, were built now at this point, some of them 20 years ago. When it comes to maintenance, I do think it's worth just noting that, the current 0.25% CLC income tax, all of the funding that is currently generated is needed to cover those bonds through 2033, and then the 2033 the tax expires, and so between now and then, beyond this 18 million LFI, there are no additional funds that are going to be available for maintenance or for any other purpose, because all of that money from the 0.25%, which generates about $20 million a year, is going to be paid towards the roughly $200 million of debt service.
Thank you, Mayor Malik. All right, next we'll have the CLC Access and Advisory Committee discussion. And I think, Ms. Wardle, are you discussing that? Thank you so much.
Thank you. Wardell, yes. So today I just want to update you all on about a group that's been working on CLC access, and also talk a bit about the three committees that were laid out in the cooperative agreement, one of which includes work that should be about the daily operations of the CLC buildings, and then talk about some next steps on how we can form that group. So a while back, the out-of-school time network provider, our out-of-school time provider network, which we now know as Youth Success Summit, convened a group that they called the Facility Access Team, and it is made up of some members from YSS, members from our recreation department at the city, as well as the mayor's office, and members from business affairs at Akron Public Schools. And what they did was they pulled together 70 or more out-of-school time providers, people who use the CLCs, to gather feedback and listen to the community about what issues exist about access to CLCs. And then after gathering that information, they examined procedures and policies and identified steps to address these things. Some of the things that came out of those discussions with the community were about the facility and the space, such as staffing capacity, the fields and the equipment, the use of bathrooms, things about cost, that things were too expensive for nonprofits, that the costs varied so much and it was hard to understand the fee structures, and then also the cost and process to secure insurance. There was also talk about the reservation process, too many people being talked to between the two different entities, and wanting to streamline that there might be more direct contact with fewer people. And then we were at that time on a paper rental process, which could be lengthy, lots of handoffs of paper and things. Depending on where in the city you were renting, it could be quick or long, and it was just inconsistent. So to date, what that group has done is they have put together, or they have implemented a digital reservation system. They have trained the OST network providers on that system and made the location of the system more accessible and easier to find on both of the websites for the city and the schools. They've centralized contact at each entity, so there is one point of contact at each organization. They've cleaned the data to better understand the community usage versus APS and city usage of those buildings, so we can really understand the volume that which the community is using the buildings. We just last month, the Akron Public School Board approved a new shared handbook to be used between both entities for use of the buildings and how to rent them. And within that same vote, we also aligned base fees for usage of those buildings. And one of the big wins, I believe, that came out of that is that nonprofits using the community learning centers will no longer be charged a base rate. So that said, that was just, some of the work to be done, and we continue to work on improving procedures, perception, culture, customer service, and I know important to many of you in this room is the insurance issue. Work has begun on trying to tackle that insurance issue. We've talked with a couple of agents, one including the McGowan, I believe, who is the carrier for Akron Public Schools, and also a group out of Cincinnati. And they put some proposals together on how we might, maybe if APS were to just cover it all. And we're trying to tackle that answer along with others, such as maybe there are different tiers of insurance that should be used. Maybe the community comes up with a pooled fund to help folks with insurance. But fact is, insurance is needed. And what we're finding is there's a lot of nuance in that need. It's not a one-size-fits-all type of situation. If you're having a card game and there's no alcohol, it is much cheaper than if you are having a football game. And in fact, I hear a lot of companies don't want to cover a football game. So it's not one size fits all. So some cities, what they do is they tier it out. But there are a lot of, I wish it were easier, but there are a lot of things to consider when we do try to tackle this issue, and it is next up on the agenda for the facility access team. Now that said, we also know that within our cooperative agreement, there ought to be a body functioning in this way that is not necessarily that facilities access team, although I do want to give great credit to that team because more has been done on this topic in the last year and a half or 2 years to help the community better access these buildings than has been done in the 15 years I've been working in this community and hearing about the issues. So kudos to that team. Ms. Falk is on that team, and they have made great strides. So I want to quickly lay out these. There are 3 committees, if you will, that are in the cooperative agreement. There's this body, the Joint Board of Review, which is, 5 members appointed by the city, 5 by the schools, and the responsibilities are to make recommendations to the Board of Education on site selection, design, and construction, advise on enhancements or changes to the master facilities plan, and it's, when all construction and all the plan is executed, then this body dissolves. Then there is also a second thing, the Citizens Monitoring Committee, which was brought up earlier in this. That is also 10 members, 5 appointed by the city and 5 appointed by the schools, and it's drawn from business, labor, and finance sectors. And the responsibility of that entity is to monitor and report on the community on expenditures of funds related to the project. Then there's this third group, which is the Community Learning Center Advisory Committee. Now, this is supposed to be a 9-member, it's made up of 9 members, 4 appointed by the Board of Education, 4 by the city, and 1 at-large member chosen by a majority vote. And each of these members serve staggering 2-year terms, which can be renewed. And the responsibilities of that group are to advise and provide recommendations to the City and Board of Education on issues related to the community learning centers and facilitate communication between City and Board representatives to support day-to-day operations of the centers. So this would be the group that really leans in on the access issues to community learning centers. I'm not sure that this group, I don't know when this group existed, if it existed, and when it last met. I do know, though, that we have been making, as I laid out, we have been making progress on this issue. So I want to recommend that from this body, we work on nominating these members, form this committee, but also make sure that we do not stall the work that is already underway by the facility access team. If we can incorporate that into what we are doing, integrating any new members that we want to serve on this committee into the work of the facilities access team, I highly recommend we do that, because too often, when you have momentum going, you don't want to slow it down. And we do have that. So if we can, pull together these two entities, or take some of the folks who are on the facilities access team and have them be some of the nominees, I would recommend we do something of that sort, so that we don't stop the progress that is already underway.
Thank you so much, Ms. Wardell. Excellent. At this point, there is no unfinished business that I'm made aware of, and so now we will stand for adjournment of this meeting. Is there a motion to adjourn? Yes, Ms. Wardell.
May I recommend that for the next time we meet, we have the nominees for that committee, so we can get that rolling?
Sure, that's a good recommendation. All right. Yes, Molinar.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam President. I certainly don't know everyone in Akron. It's our biggest small town, right? And so often we think of the people we know who would be great for something, but there are so many people in the city that we don't know that might be great for something. So I wonder if for this CLC advisory committee, if there might be an opportunity or a place that someone who is interested and who wants to be involved and wants to be considered, that they could submit their information, and that could be part of our consideration also, just to get an idea of a wider group of people. I don't know if that was something that could be possible.
Thank you, Member Molnar. Ms. Wardell.
I think we do need diversity of thought in all ways, right? I don't know, we could talk with our administrations on how to set that up. I think that's a good idea.
All right, thank you. If no other questions or discussion, we'll entertain a motion to adjourn with the city leading first, because I have notes to adjourn after the city does this roll call and closes out. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you. It's been moved there by Mr. Lombardo. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been seconded. Any discussion? Seeing and hearing none, roll call vote, please.
Dr. Jackson?
Yes. It's supposed to be the city that call us, the city's roll call to adjourn, and then I'm supposed to adjourn the whole meeting for the board. That's what I was told.
Since he did them of starting.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, go ahead.
You want me to start with just
No,
the
I'm going
city?
to defer to the senior president.
Okay, got you.
to tell-
You got it.
Yeah.
Dr. Molnar?
Yes.
Ms. Autry?
Yes.
Superintendent Alley?
Yes.
President Somerville?
Yes.
Mr. Lombardo?
Yes.
Mayor Malik?
He's after he.
Oh, I didn't see him leave. I'm sorry. Okay. Mr. Fricker?
Yes.
Ms. Wardell?
Yes.
Pastor Harrison?
Yes.
Motion carries 9-0.
Thank you. We stand adjourned at 11:58 a.m. Thank you.